primary concern with men has always been male autonomy, the freedom to act as if. My primary concern when it comes to men has always been male autonomy, the freedom to act within the bounds a man himself imposes upon himself. And to this day, I hold true to that belief and to that tenet. I think it's extremely important. And I want to go into some of the key concepts of male autonomy in this video. But before I do that, I think it's important to acknowledge various things. Most human beings, to greater or lesser degrees, are creatures of the herd, for the most part. Women, far more so than men on average, are herd animals. But most human beings have a deep need, a sense of wanting to belong to something greater than themselves. And with that, I would argue, innate desire comes a lot of treacherous territory. For example, the whole reason something such as the red man, whatever, fill in the blanks, PUA, whatever, strive for excellent unit exists, and why it's profitable, is because men, in this case, are looking to be part of something greater and form a collective. And if you think that MGTOW is an exception to this, then you haven't been on YouTube long enough. You haven't observed the evolution of what MGTOW has become. MGTOW these days, based on my even cursory observation or in-depth observation, has become a commercialized racket of people selling largely collectivist ideas and trying to fit into some group with an underlying philosophy, a specific set of tenets that everyone needs to adhere to. I'll give you an example of this whole notion of levels of MGTOW, which I've always thought was very silly. That is an attempt to systematize, in a bad way, I think, something that should never have been systematized, an attempt to commercialize something that should never have been commercialized. So there's always a risk, because of human nature, and male nature to be specific, of collectivizing and trying to rally under some specific banner. And this isn't unique to PUA communities or quote-unquote red man communities. I've seen it happen in MGTOW over the last 7 or 8 years. Barbarossa, many moons ago, and these days, there are many so-called MGTOW who don't even know who Barbarossa is, or what his work was or represented, once coined the phrase male entropy, by which he meant men spreading out in 1,000 different directions. But if you look at the landscape of content on YouTube, MGTOW or otherwise, in the manosphere, you'll see anything but. And to my mind, and this is my own interpretation, part of male entropy is male autonomy, doing your own thing on your own terms. At the same time, we have to acknowledge that not every man is suited or even wants autonomy. I once made a video, many, many moons ago, titled The Male Desire for Unfreedom. And in it, I attempt to account for men's wish to not be free. And it makes sense. It's why a guy like Jordan Peterson is so popular. People want guidance and direction. And I am the first one to admit that I am a poor guide and I am poor at giving directions. I'd like to think I'm offering something else. But for the most part, human beings, and men specifically, want a routine, as it were. They want a schedule. They want something to do that they can follow, and they do not want to look for the answers themselves. But to this day, it's still important to me, inasmuch as I occasionally produce MGTOW content, and I would say, without question, adhere to a MGTOW lifestyle, that men who seek it have that option of autonomy and feel beholden to nothing and no one other than themselves. And the difficulty here is walking that balancing act, because you have to, if you're sane and have a brain, acknowledge that human beings are collectivist. They look to rally under banners and groups. It's why all these things exist. It's why the commercialization of MGTOW has been so successful, where everyone can chime in and talk about things like MGTOW for life, as if it were a coherent set of principles or philosophy, which it's never really been. It's just a bunch of men doing their own thing. And I want you to really think about that, because MGTOW historically is just a bunch of guys who've set out to be autonomous. The amount of overlap between personal interests in MGTOW is very minimal. I think about my own arcane interests, which have very little overlap with more traditional interests in economics or cars or rule of money and things like that. And any of these things can fit into a MGTOW perspective, but the point is that there's not a lot of common ground. And that's part of the whole male entropy thing, branching out into 1,000 different directions. Whereas by way of contrast, someone such as entrepreneur with cars or the PUA, red pill man, whatever you want to call it, lifestyle does have a certain general trend. Entrepreneurship, making money, attracting quote-unquote high-quality women, showing off your status, materialism. And so there's a kind of unification there that you wouldn't find under a classic interpretation of MGTOW. But in the new age, that is late 2018 as we exist today, there definitely is that in MGTOW. There's an idea of what MGTOW is to many people because it's been heavily commercialized. MGTOW in many ways now is a product, as are many things on YouTube. I don't think that's the way it was originally envisioned, as it was talked about by Barbarossa and myself in early days, and that's fine. But despite all of this, to my mind, going your own way still entails that option of autonomy and not listening to gurus. If you want to find your own answers, and you are suspicious or skeptical of the answers of other people and other men who are telling you to do X, Y, Z, because they claim if you do X, Y, Z, you will find salvation. Of course, they never call it as such. They never say, I'm offering you salvation, but it's obvious what they're trying to offer you. Then that option should be there. And we have to be aware that most men are not looking for that type of autonomy. Most men are looking to fit in, to belong, to be part of something greater than themselves. And that's fine. I don't fault anyone for that. But for the thinking man, the man who values his own freedom, his own autonomy, and wants to seek peace of mind on his own terms, to me, that's what MGTOW is for. And that's why when I encounter something such as a message sent to entrepreneurs with cars, I have to react to it with a sense of vehemence and force, because if the man in question looking for those answers is bringing up certain things that run into my wheelhouse and invokes my name, I think it's important that I offer a response and offer something different rather than the tried and true. Now, it might be that my interpretation of what that man was looking for in that particular letter is incorrect, but nonetheless, I want to put it out on the table. And I think that, to my mind, whatever else MGTOW might be these days, is the single most important part of it. The search for autonomy, peace of mind, on your own terms. And the idea that if you do not want to be, you needn't be beholden to the world. You have one life to live. You have a short life. It is very short, actually. And given those set of circumstances, what do you want to do with it? If you think it's more valuable to be an individual, then I think MGTOW, in its older incarnation at least, is for you. And if not, I can perfectly understand that. Then find your meaning elsewhere. Again, I understand why Jordan Peterson's popular. I understand why, I understand why the more commercial side of MGTOW is popular. I understand why entrepreneurs and cars is popular. All of these things make sense to me. But what I oppose, and will always oppose, is the selling of false hope, the selling of absolute certainty, the selling of one shoe size fits all, one path fits all. And there is always that danger when you're selling a product. And I cannot and will not countenance that, particularly if a man is looking to find his own way in the world. In that case, that man must be offered other options. And that's why, in these rare instances, I come out with such a strong voice against that sort of thing. I don't like people selling absolute truths when it's obvious that there are none. I don't like people selling quote-unquote red pills as if swallowing a quote-unquote red pill solves all your problems and you're set for life. Again, life is really complicated. And for those who are seeking different avenues, I think that's what MGTOW ultimately is for, to my mind. But then again, I'm a very old school guy, and I come from a time before the manosphere and MGTOW became a commercial mess. Anyway, I wanted to get that out there, reflect a little bit about my previous video, and just my own understanding of what MGTOW is to me, and what I think it can be to men. An avenue, a pathway to seek autonomy and freedom. And however you define that. For many men, it is just making money and being financially secure. For other people, and certainly to me, it's a kind of peace of mind with the cosmos and my place in it. And all these things are fine. But when you hear somebody telling you, you got to do this, you got to do X, Y, Z, and then you will achieve whatever, always be wary, always be suspicious. And I hope to the extent that the philosophy of male entropy still exists, that there are some men still branching out in 1,000 different directions. I have no doubt that they are. They're just not as loud as the more commercialized, more conventional ones are. So anyway, I hope you enjoy your weekend, and if I'm still alive, there'll be more to come. Bye-bye.
If you liked this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you enjoy my content, please consider making a donation or becoming a patron. Thanks for watching.